Hello everyone, good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you all for the webinar conducted by Sona College of Technology, Salem. We have with us Mr. Chocko Valliappa sir, Vice Chairman of Sona College of Technology, Founder and CEO of V Technologies. And we have with Venkatraman Umakan, Vice President Analytics and IT of V Technologies. 2 decades, he has worked across various assets, IT industry, development, sales, etc. And we have with us Jairam Pillai, ex-MD of National Instruments. He was given the responsibility of building National Instruments brand in different geographies like India, Russia, and Arabia. He helped grow clients' businesses by providing them with appropriate technology to build measurements and control systems. Sir, we welcome you all. Chocko Valliappa, sir, you can continue.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's indeed a very special day that all of you are here. So it was today, 100 years ago, that in our founder Kalaitandai Karmut Tyagara Chettiar's house in Madurai, that Gandhi stopped wearing a shirt for the last time, and so we're celebrating 100 years today. So welcome everyone. So a special welcome to Jairam and Venkat. I thought instead of introducing the panel here, so it'll be interesting if you could walk us through, Jairam, for example, from your perspective. You started off with the Indian Navy, which we tell is a great career for many of our graduating students, because people don't look at services as a career. And for you, it's almost been a stepping stone, I think, in a way to success. And then move through the ranks of National Instruments. So if you could perhaps walk us through, that'll be great, Jairam.
First of all, thank you, Chocko and Sona Institute for inviting me. It's a pleasure and a great opportunity to interact with students and everyone else in this webinar. I have joined Indian Navy. My journey is very interesting. Several times I've been asked this question about how a naval guy switched from Navy to the corporate life, and I have one of those stories. I will try and explain this with a learning in terms of at least education, because engineering education. I come from, after my engineering education with the Navy as an electrical engineering officer, specialized in aviation technology, I got an opportunity to get educated abroad, spent 3 years. During that time, I got specialized in testing, hardware testing, which is a part of the avionics testing. In that, I have learned a lot in terms of understanding deep on a specific topic, which is those days was cutting edge. And it is cutting edge even today, and it's very niche. So I will bring out two things. One is that you have to continue to learn if you want to make progress in life. Second, the opportunity if you get a niche kind of opportunity to learn something specific, and it uniquely sets you apart from the rest, is something that you should always look for. And I had an initial engagement for 15 years to serve Navy, which I completed. After that, I said, let me just try and see what else can I do, a different career. I came out, joined National Instruments. I was fortunate to be in the right place to start National Instruments in India. 97 is when I started the office of National Instruments in India. As a single person, I have sort of experienced a startup in a way, because obviously it didn't have the burden of cash flow, but had all the other things that goes with the startup: building customer bases, building loyalty to customers, ensuring the customer success, technology, spreading the technology offerings to customers, and in India to start with. So that went on till 2005. We've had some challenges. If you remember, back then, 97, we had some the nuclear bomb testing, subsequent sanctions to India, and we couldn't sell many of our technology to customers. We got to look for other avenues to develop our business. Learned again a lot that how to circumvent difficulties in challenging situations. All these opportunities make you stronger as we go forward. Figured out how to build the business from once again falling down, get up and start going again. That success that we were able to come back strongly in the country helped me give additional responsibility to develop businesses or manage businesses then in Middle East and Russian region, which I inherited because they already got started by then, but I just got to manage them and further develop that business from there. Remember, National Instruments is a technology company. We deal with hardware and software for testing, and customers are usually on the cutting edge of technology. So often we get to interact with the most leading edge technologies out there. So if you talk about 5G, autonomous cars, artificial intelligence, data science, we are there because these things have to be tested often. And we
that's one of the reasons why we have you here, Jairam. So you can impart to students across. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So that it is and remember, testing doesn't curtail itself to any specific stream of engineering. Civil engineering requires testing, mechanical engineering requires testing, software requires testing, hardware requires testing. So it's just everywhere. And it is very little known about test as a domain, but it's been a wonderful journey. And so I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts and experiences that I had. Remember, over this time, I have seen several technology changes from normal cellular phone to 2G, 3G, 4G, and a 5G, and the changes thereafter. Things disappeared. Things like that we use typewriters gone, radios disappeared. And today what we are seeing, in terms of cloud computing technology and so on. So we've seen in my 20, 30 years of career, I've seen several things appear and disappear. In fact, the rate at which it is appearing and disappearing is only fastening and speeding up in a way. So I've seen those happens. I've seen engineers. I've seen the software boom in the country. I've seen the multinationals coming in and growing. And I'm very excited to see a lot of startups. In fact, there are 50, 60 plus startup companies that are valued over $1 billion in India. It's amazing. And these things happened in the last decade or so. And this is just last year alone. Q2 of this year, Indian startups have raised $6.5 billion of cash investments. So this is just best time to be an engineer, to be honest. This is the time. And sometimes I look at my face and see all the white hairs, and I feel like I should have been 30 years back. I should have born 30 years later, because this is the time that really India and the opportunities in India is taking off. Everything is just falling in place. India. The ecosystems are out there, the opportunities are out there. Every new technology just unleashes new businesses. We just need to reinvent. We just need to reimagine the things. Taxi services with the invention of with the technology, Ola, Uber. It's just reimagine how the services come in, and all of that brings in new businesses.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I'll let you ask me questions if I can answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jairam. So I'll just add a couple of things. Like, very interesting that you said, you need to pick a niche and pick an expert in that, and how you can apply that across. In your case, you did the testing side. So, and I think many times the students have this huge problem saying which branch of engineering do I choose, uh, and if you take my life for example, as I can illustrate. I mean, I started off studying textile engineering and spent my life about 10 years in textiles. I could remove every machine and reassemble back. And I was working with the textile research institutions where I graduated here in Citra, South India Textile Research Association, or in Czechoslovakia. So we were doing advanced research in open and spinning. But in '96, my whole life changed, and I had to move from textiles. I mean, is textile engineering relevant? Probably not, but it tinkered me to the world that I am in now, and I'm in the technology world. So as long as you understand how things work and have a understanding of how it works today. So and that's the key, right? So today we are getting into we are building a platform called Sona Homes, which is in construction engineering. So it's a completely new, different line. So, or Hire Me, the product that we have, which is getting people jobs, that's an app. It's all across different. So it's not relevant. I mean, there you need to choose a thing which you have interest in more so than like have a future in, right? So if you have an interest in certain things, you'll automatically get a future. So I think I got that question, so I just responded to that and spoke to that. Venkat, from your side too, so you have an interesting journey across, so if you can just walk us through. So.
Sure. Thanks so much, Chocko. And Jairam, great to hear about your journey as well. And my journey, again, has been a very kind of a different journey, I would say, and really blessed to have that kind of a journey. So I actually did my chemical engineering from Anna University. And thanks to these platforms, like the sessions that we're having today, none of that existed then, right? So when I got actually engineering thing, when I qualified for that, I actually got IT and electronics as well. And I had nobody to guide at home, right? So there was only one neighbor which we had. And he, at that point in time, with due respect to him, whatever knowledge he had, he said, you know what, IT and all that is just a temporary thing. Get into something which is evergreen, like chemical or mechanical and so on. So I chose chemical, not knowing what I'm getting into. I just chose chemical. And I finished my engineering. Then I started my career in chemical engineering into a sales kind of a job. And that was through a cold calling. So the reason I'm saying that is, since we have students on the platform as well, I want all the students to not do the mistakes that I did and also learn from my experience, right? So it is one about being open to suggestions, trying to get feedback about doing your own research as well, right? And this is where I think parents also play a key role. But like my parents, of course, did not force me to do anything. And I think they should not sort of constrain saying that, okay, now that IT is, you're seeing a lot of opportunities in IT, that's the only way to go. That's not the only way. There are multiple other ways. And I will touch upon how this collaboration of the core engineering with technology actually has a lot more value than being only on technology or only on IT as well. So I started off from that, and then I realized, okay, I could do something else. So I transitioned into IT, right? So this, again, if you look at it, I got a feedback from one of who I used to look upon as a role model. And he said, why didn't you try this? So until then, I never had interest in IT. I did the program. I did very well. I realized my problem-solving skills are really good. So I transitioned into IT, and then the journey started in the IT. From small organizations, I was with IBM for several years there and done varied kind of roles because I always like to keep challenging myself, learning new things. And I think that is, I did not do it with a conscious intention of knowing that this is how the future will turn out. But in retrospect, I think this is what is required today. As you are in the VUCA world, you start an uncertain world, that you need to have this diverse experience. So let's not get fixed on one particular thing. The most important thing to be adaptable. So later I did my management program from IIM Indore as well. And having spent about 16 years in IBM managing a consulting services business and other businesses as well globally, then I actually had a short stint with NASSCOM for about 2 years. And that started off with an intent of doing something with a larger purpose for the country. And I was fortunate to be a founding member of Future Skills Prime Initiative, which is a joint initiative of the Government of India as well, which is to really upskill people on digital technologies and position India as a global talent hub. So we had a good start to that. I was fortunate enough to really contribute, work with a lot of corporates, academia. And then I felt I should try something else. And that is when I happened to meet Chocko. And then I found We Technologies is a wonderful organization Because not just in isolation, but if you look at the overall Sona Group with a very unique setup here, because we have the Sona institution, which is on one side actually feeding with all the supply as well of the good students that could get hired into these organizations, and we could nurture them even before they join. So, right, so your training cycle comes down. So that was one thing which is very unique. The other unique thing is about the different verticals that we have, because Chocko did mention about these projects like Sona Homes and all that. And this is where I want to bring in the use of technology, domain, and your soft skills. So today, unlike maybe 10 years back, it is not just about your IT skills. Yes, IT skill is important, digital skills are important, but that will only take you thus far. But imagine if you have a domain skill. For example, he talked about Sona Homes. We couldn't have built that without the civil engineers and architects behind that, because they are the subject matter experts. We could translate that, use the technology to sort of bring in that platform, right? But that is where it comes in. And the third thing is the soft skills. So in today's world, when you talk about working with different kind of domains and all that, collaboration becomes absolutely critical, right? And communication is, of course, an important point. The soft skills have become more like hard skills today. It is very hard to train. So the earlier you start on that, it's better. And just one last thing which I want to touch upon is people might be wondering, I did chemical engineering and then moved to IT. How did it help? Even I did not realize that it could really help. As Chocko was mentioning, at any point in time, the learnings that you have will never get wasted. So through IBM, I had an opportunity to travel to Morocco on a pro bono consulting assignment to work with the government of Morocco and work on the sub-Saharan Africa region. So the crop yield is actually dropping year on year. So our project was to really do a market survey to see why it is dropping. How can we do some technology intervention to really improve that? And that is when we were looking at this, the soil quality and all that. That is when I could relate, saying that since I had some background, it's not that I was an expert in chemical engineering, but my understanding of ability to connect the dots was much better than my peers. So this is where it's a good example of, again, having this domain plus your technology plus your soft skills. So I've been very fortunate that way. And as Jairam, you mentioned that I wish I was born 30 years later. I think I probably look at it a different way, because you've seen that part. You're able to appreciate this a lot better. I'm not sure the current generation will be able to do that, but we are able to appreciate the power of technology much better. So back to you, Chocko.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, thank you, Venkat, for traveling us back. Interesting background that you were also able to bring in from a dynamic side. So, I mean, as we're talking about the hybrid learning here today, what should the technology roadmap for students be? Because I had a chat with a bunch of students last week. And I had a session with them, and I asked them, so what's working, what's not? Because very interestingly, for the first time post-COVID, they are in campus. They're actually seeing the classes happening. So it was a 2 weeks of classes. So I wanted to just get a pulse check. So they said, like, we like the online mode for classes because here it's 50-50. So the teacher is teaching 50% here, 50% online. And they're saying we're getting very confused. So that's where we came up with this concept. Like, I've been always talking about this concept, saying that all the classroom work should be done at home, meaning have the lectures conducted at home. So we have lecture capture systems, for example, which we've invested a lot of money over the years. And in terms of actually recording the classes and tagging the classes literally every class is tagged 3-4 times so that you can go right through where the professor was talking about it. And actually use the class hours to do homework. So to give more problem solving, more collaborative work, those kind of things. So, any thoughts on that, Jairam? So.
No, I think it's. Obviously, this is a new space. Not too much data is available. What is best? We are all in the new space of COVID, and fortunately, unfortunately, we got us into this space. And then, if you look at it, there is a lot of merit in this discussion. There's a lot of merit in having this remote virtual learning. Remember, it opens up a new space, not only the data, the content that is produced by Sona, but also the NPTEL data that you can start looking at other, so that learning through classroom is not the only way you can learn, right? you have other avenues to learn, which I think in today's learning you can't curtail just yourself what is being taught by you, the lecturers in the class. And the classroom is great because you get to interact, team building, all the vocational type of experience that you have. So use that there, because we do have a problem of crunching a lot of new courses because things are changing. Just look at the IT space alone. There are numerous courses that need to be taught. So I think the idea of taking courses at home and doing the learning lectures from home, not confined to just Sona courses, but other courses. There is enough material out there. So it's just ability to take and learn that, and then bring it back to the classroom to do all the experiments. I think that seems to be a very good proposition for students, and it gives you more things to do, more ability to learn, more content to look at. That would be my take on this.
Thank you. Venkat?
Yeah, so I'll probably start with one of my cousin's son is a 2.5-year-old kid, right? So they're born just before the COVID and all that. And for them, it's natural. This kid has not even started going to a play school. And just by playing YouTube and all that, this kid has actually learned the alphabets and all. He narrates everything. So that's a good example of how the current generation, the kids who are getting born, they're born with on the cloud, you could say, they start learning on themselves. So I think there is a shift which is happening from a teaching to a learning, right? So you look at the corporate world. Corporate world today looks, one of the important parameters to look for is the learning agility. Right? You look at any large organization, they say, do the candidate have a learning agility? They're not hiring for what you know today, but do you have the ability to unlearn and learn? Because as Jairam also mentioned initially, the pace at which the technology, the things are changing is very fast. Now, what you know today is going to be irrelevant tomorrow. But do you have the ability to unlearn and learn new things? That's important. And with the kind of pace that we are in, teaching is not something which is sustainable, right? So it has to be more of a learning, and that's where the hybrid thing comes in. And as Chocko mentioned, it's more about the faculty members being a facilitator, right? So it's more about students coming prepared, sharing their understanding of the concept. They're only a facilitator to guide them, and it's more about application-oriented learning. I think that's where it has to move. It's already moving in that direction, but there's lots to be done in that space. And with the amount of learning that's required, it has to be hybrid, and it has to be sort of a self-learning, I would say, which the teaching should be only like an intermediary thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Jairam. I think, yeah, so especially today, since the technology is improved so much, it's not you're in class, but if you want to go for revision and then you want to look at what the teacher taught, saying that I wish I listened to the professor then you can immediately go back and rewind to that. And one interesting aspect I thought I'll share with everyone here is that one of the most revered sought after prizes in the world is called the X Prize, and this is put by Elon Musk, the founders of Google, and Peter Dimitris and the others, Hamid Ansari. And they put normally $10 million, $5 million on a challenge. And there was a challenge how to skill people faster. It was called the Rapid Reskilling Challenge. It was and Hayami decided to put ourselves into the race. And there were 400 companies. We said, let's see, apply and see. And then we are actually surprised that we are leaders in that space right now. So we are actually leading the $5 million X Prize challenge. And one thing I wanted to share was there was a 9 months program that we took and we shrunk it to 3 months. And so we actually accelerated it 200%, right? Almost 3x. And we were surprised that some of the people actually within 1 month they finished the whole program. And because they were able to go through faster. So, and that's the big problem of traditional learning, because in a class of like whatever the class size is, 30, 40, 50, whatever. So do you teach the geniuses, the 5% geniuses, or do you teach the bottom percent? So that's the dilemma for the teachers always. Like, so they teach to the mean more so. So the bottom people struggle and the top people find it too boring. So that's the unique advantage of this hybrid learning, where you're actually able to do horses for courses. And because let's face it, like, I always still tell our professors that every class you need to teach in 3 different ways minimum, because some listen and understand, some see and understand, some do and understand. It's a philosophy of life. We are all different, and we all learn differently. So and through hybrid learning, you're actually able to do that. So you can go to a professor who teaches bit by doing, and then you realize maybe they do an experiment and show you how it works, because that's how you will learn. Or you might not learn, because the person who doesn't learn may listen to somebody talk and then get inspired. So so there are different aspects of how you can do that. So and Jairam, so if I might get to you, so I know you said that you had experience across industries. So now, how are some of the industries looking at hiring in the years in the future? So right now, as you see it, so.
Chocko, it's we are in India, so therefore, whether you like it or not, the largest opportunities exist is in the software space, the IT. But let me put it like this. I think let me go back to what Venkat said earlier. The world. There are 2 worlds that we are looking at today. There is this physical world, and then there is this cyber world, and somewhere along it combines into one. So if you look at all the businesses that is going around, I mean, particularly the startups, if you look at the startups, by far the largest number of startups are really on the software side. And there are reasons for it. It's not that others doesn't exist or it's not there. It's just the fact that the bootstrapping is a lot easier in the software size space. Right? But if you want to do some hardware, it's much more difficult to do. So when I said the physical, it's just the things that you see, physical stuff, the cars, the trains and stuff like that, and the buildings and whatnot. And on the software, the cyberspace is what really the internet has enabled. And with the new technology, the cloud and the AI and blockchain and stuff like that. Interesting, blockchain, there's several startups are valued over $1 billion in blockchain. So it's really the world that we don't really see. And that space of that knowledge, that area of opportunities in that space is huge. And like what Venkat said earlier, there are a lot of opportunities where IT marries the engineering space, or the physical space, the chemical engineering, the physics, So that's where a lot of opportunities exist. Think about the food delivery system, right? I mean, it's a software really, but at the end of the day, there are some deliverables. Whether it is, I don't know, Yulu, electric motors. There's a physical motor, scooters or motors that is on rental, but it's done through the software, cloud computing, AI, and whatnot. So so if you look at the businesses, there's just several of them. So the largest number of, and within the software space alone, if you look at, coming with our own experience of National Instruments, we are one of those companies that are really core in deep electronics and computer science, signal processing type of company. And we are finding it harder to hire because today's generation really wants to be in the space of cloud and AI. So desktop computing programming is not good enough for people today. You're looking at cloud and AI, and those are the type of the work are more interesting. So to me, if you look at the startup space, there are a lot of opportunities in the software space. I'm not going to go over the regular regular companies like the engineering companies that are around. But if you look at the startup space, there is a lot of software companies. Also, there are a lot of mechanical, civil, chemical engineering companies out there. I know at least about 4 or 5 companies that are into robotics. It's a huge area that's you're seeing developing, who requires mechanical engineering skills. But the software skill, in my opinion, is kind of a skill that should be taught across. The depth at which you need to know this can vary. But an awareness of software, a simple usage of software should be across all the
Yeah, actually, it's a good point, Jairam. So, interestingly, if you were to look at recruitment this past couple of years, especially this year as well, it's been that, in Sona, we have this thing called choice-based credit system. So, you're able to actually choose different programs. So, and a lot of our, I think nearly all our mechanical engineers know Python programming, for example.
Precisely.
So they've been recruited by companies like Infosys for a long time. Uh, and uh, uh, and all these IT companies, they have these two placements. So one is at 4 lakhs placement, the other one is at 7 lakhs placement. And we were very happy that just last week, there was a civil engineering girl actually. So she actually got into the Cognizance second round, which is, I mean, the higher package is almost close to 8 lakhs. Salary, and then she was able to actually get into an IT company, and because of doing this choice-based credit system. So, and I think Venkat, I think you've been working with Future Skills, and I think heading that, and we are actually supporting a big supporter of the Future Skills. So Sona was one of the first 9 colleges or universities which got into the Future Skills program. So as you're talking about Future Skills, so what are the skill sets which are needed, and how do you see that? So.
Sure. So I'll probably just touch upon the relevance of these core engineering as well. Just want to share some stats because people might have a thing whether there is enough opportunities in civil or mechanical and all that. Now, Jairam did mention about a lot of these startups. Yes, they are tech startups, but not pure IT. If you look at without the domain thing, it would have been hard to really make a differentiation there. Now, if you look at civil engineering, for example, these are some of the things which I just found. For example, RICS, which is the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, based out of UK, they did a research and they said there is a demand supply gap of almost 45 million employees in civil engineering. Right now, these numbers can always debated, challenged, and all that, but this is coming from a reputed thing. Now, it just indicates that there is enough opportunity there in the market. Now, does that mean that everybody takes up civil? The answer is no. The key thing is for students and their parents just to identify whether they're really passionate about something. Would they want to work in this space? Because even if you look at civil, for example, maybe initial days we only thought about construction as the only thing. But if you look at today, there are several other areas, right? For example, you talk about transportation engineering, you talk about environmental engineering, you talk about surveying, structural engineering. There's so many areas where a civil engineer has a role to play. For example, we did mention about Sona Homes as an example. That wouldn't have happened without support from civil engineers and architects as well. So that is the amalgamation which is happening. And just to give a context about an India context, right? India, if you look at from the budget announcement as well, India planned to invest about $1.4 trillion over the next 5 years on infrastructure, right? And if you talk about railways, they're suggesting investment of about 5 lakh crores between 2018 and 2030. Now, all these, if you look at the infrastructure development, they would require a large number of civil engineers and architects to play a role. Now, is that being published outside? Probably not. That's the reason there's a lack of visibility. In IT, you see on the headline saying that Wipro is going to hire 20,000, Infosys hires 30,000, which is not being shown. Doesn't mean that the opportunities aren't there. There are enough opportunities. Just have to think back. Now, similarly, on the mechanical, if you look at it, it's just about how do you amalgamate and make it more relevant for today's world. Is mechanical relevant? Absolutely. It's more relevant than what it used to be. You talk about automobile today, it is not just about those large manufacturing and testing. It's gone much beyond that. Like Jairam talked about robotics as one of the important space, right? So robotics is one. You talk about mechatronics. You talk about the power and metal plants. So there are different areas within mechanical that one can really get deep into. My only submission to all the people who are listening here is not just get carried away by the initial package that you get, right? So I know about my uncle who actually got into Asian Paints after his IIM. And he said that's the first thing that they do there is to crush your ego, right? That may not be the best payer, but that's the best learning ground. Like typically they talk about certain organizations and different verticals, right? Which is the best place for people to learn. I think that is what we need to look at. Opportunities are there in immense, right? So mechanical, again, as I mentioned, it's about, I think Sona also does that where they have mechatronics as a branch. They're trying to make sure people are able to marry the mechanical knowledge with the electrical and information technology and bring out the best. And none of this would happen without the domain skill, right? So that is one. And from a future skill perspective, I think sort of that is covered here. The main focus of driving that, the government investing about 430 crores on that, is they knew that the digital economy, it is going to grow about 1 trillion by 2025, right? And COVID has been a boon in that space. We've seen an overnight transformation. All the organizations sort of waking up and saying, okay, we need to digitalize and get into digital transformation space. And that could happen only when you have the skills. Now, we produce so many engineers, but the thing is, how many of them are relevant? Enough things have been said in the industry about it, right? And what we are saying is not replacing one with the other. That's where people get mistaken, saying that, okay, is IT the only space? No. I keep repeating that if you are a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, can you get fluent with some of these key technology areas which is relevant in your engineering space? Can you amalgamate these two? That is what you will give an edge over others. If you're plainly just civil, just because you want a degree, you do it, then unfortunately you won't have much of success. But if you really do it passionately and bring in the technology aspect as well, there is no limit to it. So that was the intention of Future Skills as well, is to really position India as a digital talent hub. Because so far, if you look at it, India is known as a services organization or services industry in the global platform. But can we really have ourselves as a product development nation? Because it's very unfortunate. Is there any one product like an Apple or something which has come out of India? Not. But it's usually the Indians who are heading those companies, be it Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella and so on, right? So we do have the capability. It's about just nurturing that. It's just a little bit of shift in the mindset, and we'll be able to do wonders. So that was the mission of Future Skills as well. It is going good. And as Chocko mentioned, Sona was one of the premier institute to take on. And it's about driving that as well. It's not just coming on board, but the faculty members are also making sure students are utilizing that and gaining out of it. Thanks, Chocko.
Yeah, thank you, Venkat. One interesting aspect, we just had the CEO of Salem Aerospace Engineers, so who had a vision to put Salem in the aerospace mark into the aerospace when even Salem Airport wasn't thought of. So and it was interesting that, like, he spoke about his journey, and he was a mechanical engineer who got into aerospace engineering and is now supplied parts to Boeing, Airbus, and to Indian Defense and HAL and things like that. And but when COVID hit, because we are in the midst of a pandemic, so there was an urgent call from DRDO to make out ventilators. And India, because people were dying without ventilators, so, and certain key components were not able to be done. So, and he was relating to the fact that, he being a mechanical engineer, how he was able to roll the sleeves up and they're actually producing. And so he has a photo with Prime Minister Narendra Modi today, because he was called to honor there, because how MSMEs were able to support COVID wave 2. So, that is a great testimonial of how mechanical became relevant in the aerospace industry, and then more so, especially in COVID times. Another aspect, what I think we've got some questions coming in, which I'm answering right now through this, is that the choice-based credit system is one, but we are also having advanced diplomas today. So under BBC, we have the autonomy to give diplomas. And so we started advanced diploma in 12 different areas. So be it in electric mobility, like what it was alluded to. So you can take IT and do an advanced diploma in electric mobility. And if you do that and apply to Ola will welcome you with a red carpet, because that's the niche skills that you need, right? So you need people in cross domains, because industries are merging today. So, like, you might have more microprocessors in the car today than ever before. Like, perhaps 100 years ago, even 20 years ago, there may not have been a microprocessor, but now today, car has. But guess what? Like, I was talking to one of the motor manufacturers, and he said that, do you know how many motors are there in a car? In a luxury car today, there are over 100 motors, which are electric motors. So there's a huge amount of electric engineering in automobile. So, so these are the new things which are coming out. So for that, especially since the domains are converging in many ways, so we started data science. There's a advanced diploma on that. Smart manufacturing, there's an advanced diploma, and there's on blockchain and cybersecurity, there's another one. So these are the new emerging skills. So you need to dig deeper, and that's why we are offering this advanced diploma in these subjects. And this is not necessarily only for us, even for our alumni or people graduating and coming back. it's available. So anything to add on that, Jairam? So
Can I give you two anecdotes, if I may? Firstly, at National Instruments, we've been hiring engineers, not hiring. We did not hire software engineers, although they end up doing software. It's what Venkat said earlier, that it is about ability to adopt and learn new things, because nothing is static. Everything changes quite fast. So, I mean, some of our best engineers actually came from mechanical engineers, believe it or not. That's personal experience. So that's one. The second, really, I was involved in one of the projects doing on the COVID, the ventilators. No, not ventilators, oxygen concentrators. And it turns out there is a chemical that is used inside called zeolite, which filters compressed air and converts it into pure oxygen. And that kind of showed the underbelly of India then, knowing that we did not have a ability to manufacture zeolite, which is really a chemical product. And this is just one case. I'm sure there are several opportunities out there building very simple things, which India spends a lot of money in importing them. I mean, we talk about opportunities. There are several of these opportunities out there. I mean, just basic core engineering. And what Venkat said is very true, that we sometimes get caught up in the starting salary, which is in a way a trap. Because you get into that and you have one way to get out, because the learning there, if you get into the services, is very different from core engineering and what you could potentially do along with IT and software skills. I just want to share that because it's something that personally I've experienced it. I feel it's a great time to be an engineer right now.
Absolutely. And then I'll come to Venkat with this question. Venkat, Jairam and I were talking the other day, and he was talking about how humanities plays a role in education today, and you spoke about soft skills. So, one of the things that, from my personal experience, so my son was called by his college in University of Michigan, and then told that you don't have enough credits from humanities, so he picked up Japanese. And he had no idea what he was going to do with Japanese, but he picked up Japanese. But long story short, today he's doing his PhD in the University of Tokyo. And because one of the reasons perhaps may be that he was fluent in Japanese. I think Sona's proud that we are one of the probably the largest center of learning Japanese around outside Japan. Is probably in our campus with native speaking Japanese teachers. So, that's opened up a huge area of opportunities for students graduating. So, if the same student would have got 4 lakhs in India is now getting 22 lakhs in Japan. So that's the scale of what they're able to do. And Japan is a country which has less people as well. I mean, aging population. So, can I come to you and pose a question on importance of soft skill, and then Jairam? So you were talking of humanities. So after that.
Absolutely, Chocko. So I'll just go back to the future skill journey as well. When we started off, the Boston Consulting Group, they did a research and they said there are 9 technologies which is the future we should focus on. And when we took it to the industry, the first reaction was, at least the larger one, they said technology is critical, no denial of the fact. But where we are struggling is actually with the softer skills, the business and the professional skills as well. And that is when, again, they went back, did a research. They identified, again, 10 professional skills areas, which includes things like your communication, collaboration, leadership, digital transformation, and so on. Now, and storytelling. Storytelling is something which is very, very important. Now, this is something that I'm sure everybody would be able to relate to. Now, when you look at all the work that's happening, like there was a discussion that we had with the Mahindra as well, Mahindra Group. And the chairman was mentioning, I had been to some of these large institutes in India, like IIT, IISc, and so on. And there's a usual myth saying that there's not good quality research happening in India. And he said, you know what, I have personally been to these places and I've seen there are world-class research which are happening here. almost equivalent to what happens in the developed nation. We're not saying we are greater than that, but there is equivalent thing which is happening. But where we are lacking is in terms of how we communicate that. The storytelling is missing. Now, people generally might have a tendency to shy away saying that, okay, this is not that important. But in today's world, believe it or not, that's important. How you communicate your idea, how do you sell your idea is equally or more important than the original idea. We said, okay, he was saying that if I give the same thing to somebody from the developed nation, they would make it feel as if it's their own ideas and they would probably do a much better job in selling, right? So I think that is one aspect. And the other thing also, Chocko, when you talk about these softer skills, right, like collaboration, as I mentioned, we are talking about moving in from, say, robotics into what we called as a cobots, right? How do you work? Humans are working with robots. So if you look at some of the Harvard studies as well, they're saying in the future, maybe 5-10 years down the line, you will have these roles coming up as a chief robot managing officer or something, right? So you have to manage your physical workforce plus your robots as well. So that is the extent to which all the collaboration is going to be required. You will have to work with other branches. For example, during this pandemic time, I had an opportunity to work on a pandemic management platform. So we had a couple of doctors from Brazil and one more location as well. And we had data scientists and all of that. And after about 2-3 weeks, the message that we got is the doctor said, you know what, I think I should do a basic course on AI. I want to understand this a little better so that I can interface better with the technical guy. At the same space, the technical guys felt, okay, while they had this thing saying that I'm a data scientist, they said, you know what, I don't think I could have done anything without their inputs. Because it's all raw data. Unless you make sense out of it, it doesn't make any value, right? So the true thing is about the collaboration. And that's where the collaboration becomes absolutely critical in today's world and the future as well. And these are things I think we need to start nurturing. Because irrespective of what the future lies, because if you talk about 5-10 years, honestly, most of us do not know what the future lies. But if you have these skills, it will help you tide over. For example, Jairam also talked about the learning agility, the adaptability. These are something which is important, which will help you tide over. So the soft skills is very important. And I think we need to emphasize a lot more on that. I know a lot of institutions, even Sona does that. Like when a student comes on board, they evaluate how they are on their soft skills and over a period of time improve that. Because we've seen when I was at IBM also and other organizations, when we go for campus recruitments, they have good CGPAs and all that, but the first round of aptitude, they're not able to clear. And that is where I think even things like Hire Me is actually helping to really assess yourself where you are, understand your gaps, bridge that gap so that you're better prepared. Those things did not exist earlier. Thanks, Chocko.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Jairam, so we are talking about the importance of humanities.
Yeah. Venkat pretty much covered, but I'll just add one more thing. With the soft skills, I would say there are two things that should get added, which is vocational training and other humanity topics would help open up new areas of jobs in a way. Think of this way. You are an engineer and you have learned law a little bit. All of a sudden, you are a patent lawyer. You can litigate, you can understand certain aspects of. So this combination of engineering background, let's say with a creative thinking, something about creativity, you can design products a lot better than a raw engineer who will build a prototype or a proof of concept, because that's not really understanding usage of how to make things use better is a kind of a creative thing that combines with engineering would help you create a new set of jobs, which probably we're not even thinking today. Right? And that's the benefit of adding this type of occasional training. Occasional training is a big problem with our country because we simply don't know how to put our hands and do some simple things, right? I was fortunate because the Navy taught me a lot of hands-on work, and hence I was able to get around it. But if you ask a 50-year-old engineer to do something hands-on, he will struggle a lot, other than doing software programming, which I think is good at. But anyway, occasional training, very important. And along with that, you should also get into some humanity, some sort of topics of humanity, where you can see the future going in that direction. So you can help you grow into those business opportunities or professions.
Yeah, Venkat.
So I just want to add one thing. While we talked about some of these softer aspects like communication, collaboration, two other important things which I shouldn't have missed that earlier is one on the problem solving and problem definition, right? So I think if you look at it as a culture, right, India is good in problem solving. That's why we're good at services, because what comes in, we are able to solve it. But problem definition, I think, is something which you can tag it along with creativity and product development and all that, because we all know that if the problem is well defined, half the problem is solved, right? So that's something which I think we need to ingrain. How do you really define a problem? Because we sort of jump into, and it's a day-to-day life also, it happens, we just start and immediately jump and try to solve the problem. But that's again another aspect. It sort of relates to what Jerem also mentioned, is when you talk about vocational training and all that, it's more about the practical element of that. And I think where the problem definition really comes in, because even if you look at industry wise, people are looking at this as an important trait. Are you able to solve or define and solve a problem?
Yeah, and then another important aspect, I know Jairam alluded to this earlier when he spoke about how the startup just this quarter have raised crores of rupees. A lot of, I mean, today, luckily, the 20 years ago, it was the age of Lakshmi where only money talks, right? So, I mean, now people with ideas go in, and there are many venture capital companies. There are MSME programs. I mean, Sona is happy to be an incubator of the MSME program. So we do have an MSME incubator, and something very exciting for us is that we've now partnered with IIT Madras to become their incubator in Salem, because IIT Madras says that, I mean, their startups who started up at IIT Madras are now valued over 7,000 crores. And so they want to share what they have done into other areas. And then that's how they were partnering with a few institutions, and Sona became one of the first colleges to pick that up and then sign the incubators now. So a lot of startups in Salem will be incubated by IIT Chennai. IIT Madras will come in, speak, or perhaps pick our students and take them to Chennai as well. So those are huge opportunities. But how is the students going to take this is something that we need to definitely encourage more entrepreneurship. So, and I know most of you here would be looking at jobs. So I think you should also be potential job providers, like what our Prime Minister says. Don't be looking for a job, become a job provider yourself. So I think, Jairam, do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I just an experience around what we are seeing at our job at the companies. What we're learning is the undergraduate programs, more and more as the technology gets more complex and difficult to deal with, is not sufficient. You are looking for specialization. Like you said earlier, so you said there are about 12 different you said specialized courses that you have, diploma courses.
Advanced diploma, yeah.
So these are very key for getting the right set of people into the business, because they come with. If I'm a mobility electric mobility company, it's not sufficient for me to get an IT guy or a mechanical guy, right? I just need to have the right mix and some exposure for me to hire. So it's very important to make sure that the education doesn't stop at the undergraduate. It's okay to take a break, but it's very important that you get, I mean, you can learn a lot by yourself, but in engineering, you got to do it. You got to have the infrastructure to be able to do certain things here, to learn. And therefore, I would encourage everyone to continue to learn, either through formal educations or by yourself. Staying in undergraduate and finding a job will help you learn on certain topics, and you keep learning in that space. But that doesn't give you lateral learning. It's difficult to learn laterally unless you make a deliberate attempt to go and learn something different. Whereas you could do it in a structured, formal programs like what Sona is offering. So I would encourage such courses a lot. At the undergraduate level, be very strong with your basics. Very important to ground yourself on the basics. And at the specialization, you can get into niche spaces where adds a lot more knowledge into that space.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Jairam is talking about. So, like, the idea is to pick that special skill, right? So, whatever it can be. So, like, for example, some of our mechanical students and civil students last year picked up, we have a program on drone technology. So, they learned. And then, I think the entire team was completely picked up by, I think, literally by one company. They just came in and then say picked up, and the salaries are also quite high. I think it's anywhere from, I think, 4 to 6 lakhs, I think, is what the salaries they got. So that was a niche skill that they learned. So it's what you can specialize in, and then to a certain extent, the new education policy is also saying that. So you start, learn a skill, go work, come back, keep learning and growing. And that's the huge advantage that Sona has today. So, for example, our ME program, so we signed up with the Hero Group, and where you can come in, enroll in employees of Hero Group, TESOL, can come learn in Sona, work in TESOL. And then we have a hybrid learning and work arrangement. So over 2 years, they graduate and then they work in TESOL, when TESOL also has a long-term plan, a career plan across. So I think that's what's interestingly coming out now. So in this new hybrid world. And some people have been asking, like, when I study in the hybrid world, how do I go to the outside world and work? So I was just answering the question, saying that the outside world is also hybrid. So you want to answer that, Venkat? So
Absolutely hybrid.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch upon the previous point as well, Chocko. Like when you talk about these innovation and the startups and all that, right? The other, if you look at a philosophical level, also, it's more about, are you owning a problem, right? So the moment you own a problem, then you'll be able to define it. Then you'll have ideas to sort of solve the problem. And I think that's something that I know you do that a lot, Chocko. So you can talk about that. But the other important thing is, one, when I visit some of these institutions as well, I say, as you rightly mentioned, it's about not just about placement, because most often there's only talk about placement, what is a percentage. Can we also talk about how many are becoming job providers as well, right? And that actually requires a cultural shift as well, because the embracing failure is something which is very important. We've seen that quite often in developed nation, college dropout, all that is normal. But here, it's society looks at it a different way. I think when you start something on your own, there is bound to be failure. They're going to be learning from that. I think that acceptability has to be there. So embracing of the failure is very important if you really want to nurture that and move in that space, while we have all the other ammunitions which are required.
sure, thank you. And I think one thing about, like, project-based learning is another new aspect which is coming out in this hybrid learning. Learning through projects. There's one university in Boston where you do 8 projects and you graduate. So any talk about Jairam or Venkat?
So I think that's gaining a lot of, I would say, as a importance. For example, when I was working with Topcoder earlier, we had a partnership with them. They were saying, like, for example, Google, when they hire somebody, they actually go to Topcoder, ask them to go to the Topcoder, solve certain problems because they have challenges there. And if you're able to solve the problem, and then you get into the hiring process and get hired, right? So I think it's slowly moving into more about the practical application of that. It's not about a theoretical knowledge. Are you able to apply that? Are you able to define and solve the problem? That is the ultimate thing which is happening. And I think even a lot of institutions are also working on this ideathon, hackathons, and all that, so that people get exposure to real world problem and are able to have an opportunity to really work on it. That's gaining a lot of prominence. So there are work happening. Are all institutes probably doing at the same level as Sona or some few other institutes doing? Probably the answer is no. So there is a lot to be done in that space. And just one last thing which I want to touch upon is when we talked about the softer skills and this as well, be it the entrepreneurial journey or the startup and all that. When you look at this is where, and we are also shifting into a gig economy, right? So when you move into a gig economy is where these skills become very important, because today what happens is you have a campus coming in, they recruit you for the skill that you have, and then rest is taken care. But when you're as a gig economy guy, what happens is you have to sell your own skills. So your selling skills comes in, your marketing, your storytelling, all of that is very important. And we are moving into that space. So I think it's from a forward looking, if we start working on it, it'll only help the future generation or the current generation, I would say.
Yeah. And they're also I think we're running kind of, we have another couple of minutes left, but our advanced diploma programs are a great way for students to go across and learn some of these things, especially in terms of, if you take civil engineering, we have a program on land survey and materials and MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And they are all job-oriented courses. So you can do this and literally walk across there, and that's how you can value add, or be it on mobility, which again, electric mobility, you can take electric students, electrical or mechanical, or even computer science people. So you can take across and then work across. And then the huge research advantage also, which is there in Sona, is something that the student should aspire. So the new education policy says the fourth year of engineering has to be in research. So, and then, you need to look at a research-oriented program where you can start working on some cutting-edge designs. So like if you take wearable technology today, so wearable technology comes in from fashion technology, textiles, mechanical, electrical, electronics, IT, everything together, biomedical, gets through everything. So Sona is actually investing 85 crores in a research program with the University of Toronto, as well as 9 other universities in the Ontario area. And we are the only Indian institution to work on the on the wearable technology. So they're all in different aspects. So so how can you, it could be in terms of sleep apnea, so develop techniques to prevent people to sleep better, or it could be in finding out your heart rate, varying, so it works across different branches. So I think, so any other last questions or closing comments, Jairam? So.
I will just add one more. Venkat mentioned earlier about owning owning a problem. I think for them to own a problem is very important. At the same time, you also should be able to identify what that problem is, and that comes with deep knowledge of that topic. And that's what the specialized courses will help you. You understand what are the opportunities that exist in that technology or wearable, if it's cloud, and if it is bitcoins or whatever. There are several technologies out there, but once you get into it, blockchain as an example has several issues that we may probably not know. But solving those problems and owning it and solving that problem gives you unique placement opportunities, right? And that's what is important. And like I said earlier, this is the best time to be an engineer, no matter what. I mean, you mentioned drone technology. It's not software. It's aerospace, sort of mechanical engineering. And with India's drone policy that got announced, there are several incentives for drone providers. This is just the time to be a good engineer in the country. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm just summing up. Thank you, Jairam. I'm just summing up a couple of things. So, they said that apart from BTech, what other programs are good? We spoke about these advanced programs, advanced diplomas, or even arts and science, if you can develop a certain niche, because it all depends on who you are, and then that's the whole core. So, not everyone is cut for engineering, but engineering has a great future. So if you're not cut for engineering, you should be not doing engineering. But again, if you're cut for engineering, you follow the passion, So, I'm just pulling Venkat here, so don't be like his neighbor. So asked him to do chemical engineering, and then ended up that IT was his future. So, because he had his passion, but somebody told him chemical, and then that perhaps he may have become gone out much faster and done greater things if he had gone into IT earlier than that, like that. So I think it's what's your calling, and if you and whatever you do, you don't need to. It'll come to you, So we all look up to Apple products in a big way, and Steve Jobs says that he learned about the art of doing things through his father, because he watched his father being a carpenter, and he learned how to finish a wood perfectly, and that gave the styling of the apple, right? So so carpentry and Apple phones don't come together, but it did come together, right? So so from that aspect, so I think I think on this day when Gandhi is 100th year of leaving a shirt in Madurai, I think we should rededicate ourselves to becoming making India a better India. So we have a great country and great opportunities, more so than anything else. From a $3 trillion economy, we're going to be a $5 trillion economy, and for that, I have calculated, and it comes to 14 million jobs are needed in India every year for the next 10 years. So there's huge opportunities available. So I mean, there are jobs across in every sector. So it's just that some jobs are not getting advertised, like what I think Venkat was alluding to earlier. So I think we have a great panel today, and thank you, Jairam, and thanks everyone, Jairam from National Instruments, to come in and share his guidelines, and he's mentoring many youngsters, so it's good to have him there. And Venkat, it's good to get your perspective, especially coming from the future skills perspective, as well as from all your others. So, and thanks for all the questions coming in. We'd be happy to answer questions. So we copy these questions and then get back to you with response for people we have not responded to. And come in and visit us. So we are open campus now, and we do follow safety protocols. So if you were asking, and it was one of the things it was a litmus test that I did with our team, and they said that how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10? They gave us between 7 and 8. So I'm being honest here. So and that's the score we got. So we are taking all the precautions that we should. And the pandemic is there, but the pandemic has also taught us a lot, and it's taught us how to do hybrid learning in many ways. So thank you. Thanks a lot for coming. All the best. Over to College Dunia.
Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you can directly contact Sona College of Technology. You can visit their website and get the necessary information. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.